In a new earnings call, Sony confirmed the future of Bungie. Changes started last year, and it seems now Sony may be finally making the decisions on the front lines, fully taking over Bungie in the process. Welcome everybody, let's break down this news. So Sony held one of their earnings calls for investors. In it, we get some information about Bungie and their future projects, Destiny, Marathon moving forward. They first start by talking about Marathon. Investors were curious about the game itself and when they were going to see it release. Here's what they said. First, about Marathon. How we factored it in the forecast. We expect the launch to happen within the fiscal year. But having said that, this is not a commitment. No official announcement has been given yet. We are now doing modifications in development, and based on the progress, in the autumn timeframe we believe we can communicate when we can launch Marathon, either from Bungie or PlayStation. So this isn't anything too surprising. After the reveal of Marathon and several big issues involving the game, we kind of all seen this delay coming. It was an extraction shooter, didn't really look like it offered anything too special or game-changing, and Bungie needs to change some of that up. They've been having these playtests now behind closed doors, and from some things people have said, it seems to be turning out better. Bungie actually taking some of the feedback from the community during those playtests and implementing it into the project, changing lighting, gameplay, design, things like that. Bungie themselves, I believe, also told us they would tell us more about Marathon in the fall, around October or November. So just from that, we can sort of predict that the game would release sometime at the beginning of next year, and it seems targets would be for around March 2026. So although it has hit some struggles along the way, Marathon still seems to be important to Sony. But what's going on with the whole studio? They say this. We have gone through structural reform as we announced last year, so this independence is getting lighter. Bungie is shifting into a role which is becoming more of a part of PlayStation Studios, and integration is proceeding. So that's the news. From a baseline, Bungie is still working on their projects. Destiny Marathon is delayed but might release at the beginning of next year. Bungie is merging more into Sony Studios. For Destiny fans and people who've been following Bungie and their games, this is nothing surprising. Some of these article titles and even videos like this will pop out at you, but it's nothing new. For others, gamers who have not been around Bungie for years, it may be taken out of context as well. On post, if you had no clue what was going on, you might think this meant that Bungie's dying right now. And while that obviously could be a possibility in the future, at the current moment in time, Sony is still raking in the cash. Bungie is still valuable. For the investment they put into the company, they obviously want to see returns. Bungie, like other major companies in the gaming industry, have suffered layoffs in recent years. At the end of 2023, and even after the final shape in the summer of 2024, one of the game's best expansions. Some of this could have been from shifts in the industry, changes throughout the whole media. But there's no doubt when it comes to Bungie, leadership was a major issue. They failed to manage one of the most successful studios in the world. Too many incubation projects. Bad decisions when it came to developing their flagship title. And in the midst of all those startup projects when you didn't know how things would go, building a brand new studio next door. With the layoffs last summer, we learned that some of these projects were canned. Bungie would continue Marathon and Destiny development, but others were removed. And one project called Project Gummy Bears was moved into Sony entirely. They're developing that on their own. But as for this merge with Sony, this also isn't new. It just seems that Bungie's chance to prove themselves is finally over. And instead of having some of that individuality as mentioned, which Bungie wanted when they joined, we're getting to a point where Sony will fully make the decisions. The way I read this, Bungie still exists just inside Sony. Just like the other PlayStation studios, major ones that have been successful too. Naughty Dog, The Last of Us, Sony Santa Monica, God of War, so on. At first, Sony was like, hey, Bungie is actually one of the only successful studios running a live service game for this long. They even went independent from Activision and still launched titles and expansions that thousands of people played. We at Sony want to learn from that. And that seems to have been a major reason Sony bought Bungie for $3.6 billion. At one point, Naughty Dog was even making a live service game, and they brought in some of the Bungie developers to ask them questions and pick their mind about how a live service game like that could work. But since the deal, after missed targets and failure from Bungie's leadership, things had to change. And that began when these layoffs took place. It has been happening for over a year. Some of the Bungie devs already merged into PlayStation Studios very early on, and you can see that on their titles changed on platforms like LinkedIn and ArtStation. And that's not to say they still aren't working on Destiny and Marathon Bungie projects. I've seen some developers showcase Destiny art, for example, but their name is under PlayStation Studios. So that could be the case for some. They could have moved some of those devs to other Sony projects too. But the point is, Sony now decides what Bungie does. That began slowly last year, as the call mentions, and in the long term it seems more of this will happen, and eventually Sony will fully control Bungie. From a player perspective, this could be good and bad. Some Destiny fans have longed for Sony's takeover after word about how leadership handled things spilled out. Bonuses for some of the executives, buying cars while other employees were laid off. Maybe if Sony took over Destiny, it would get the player numbers back to it once was. It would have more developers focused on its success rather than working on 4 incubation projects alongside it. Whether you're a fan or not, Destiny has been successful and is one of the main live service examples. Some fans believe that with the old leadership gone, the game could thrive again. It's still hanging in there, still doing fine for what it is now, but it could be way better. All of that could be true, but just because Sony takes over doesn't mean some magic is going to happen. Sony bought Bungie to learn how to run live service projects in the first place. What happens when they take it over? Will some of the higher-ups who know live service games still be there to help, provide some guidance to Sony? Or will someone completely new show up and project their suit ideas onto developers? We see how Concord went. Sony might come in, revive Marathon, reignite the fire under Destiny, or it could be a complete dumpster fire. So the way I see it, it's a double-edged sword at the moment. Bungie seems to be functioning after the first merging that took place and is still ongoing. 3 episodes were released for Destiny last year after the final shape. We just had the Edge of Fate expansion in July, which launched with mixed reviews, but there's still many players playing the game. There's a major update next month, and another expansion set to arrive in December. So while the future is uncertain, as it always is, don't take this for negative and doom and gloom yet, like some people will project onto you online. These changes have been going on, nothing new, but we'll see how it pans out as things unfold. But anyway, that's all we got for today's video. If you'd like to see some more Destiny news, lore, and mysteries just like this video, please be sure to subscribe to the channel. I thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you all in the next video.